Yeah, it is nice to have that to have that back in scores, because I feel like we moved away from thematic material. It's so it's nice to have the melodies back.
Hola, hello, welcome, bienvenidos, ¿cómo estamos? My name is Marcelo Treviño, and this is El Composer Podcast, where we talk about creating tracks that tell inspiring stories. Today's guest is an award-winning film and television composer, world traveler, and passionate road cyclist. He has worked alongside composers like Jablonsky and Hans Zimmer. His credits range from world-renowned video games like Destiny 2 and the Sim series to television and film critics like NBC's You, Me, and the Apocalypse, The Lion Game, The Client List, as well as additional music to franchises like Transformers, Resurrection, and Desperate Housewives. His latest score can be heard on Telemundo Channel's new drama Malverde, El Santo, Patrón. Fellow Berklee College of Music alumni and Spanish-speaking family man, with us here today, Pieter Schlosser.
Hello, hello. Buenas tardes, buenas noches, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is.
How is it going so far, sir?
So far, so good. So it's funny because I feel like I should have sent you a more updated resume, because because last time we talked and we had this snafu with the podcast, and
I will talk about that in a second.
Yeah, and I was like, I kept it because I recorded it on my side as well, and I was like, I'm gonna keep it for a little longer, and then I deleted it, and like a week later, you're like, hey, do you have that backup? Anyways,
yeah, no, it's gonna be my time to tell the story after you finish. But go ahead.
But yeah, no, it's going well. So I'm actually just working on a show for Disney Channel, season 2, The Secrets of Sulfur Springs. It's also on Disney Plus. If you have children aged, I don't know, maybe like 10 or 8 to maybe 15 or so, you might enjoy it.
Yes. We talked about Sulfur Springs this is my time to tell the story.
Okay.
You were one of the first composers that trusted my new initiatives into the world of podcasting and my craziness with the Luchador Audio. You're like, yeah, of course, no problem. We'll chat. So you were like one of my, I think, first 10 recording episodes. Mm-hmm. I was still figuring out the tech side of it. And we're recording a different system now. But after the snafu, my brain went crazy. And so I went into 20 backup system mode. So now everything's updated and it's super cool. But you were very kind as to record all your audio professionally at your studio for the podcast. And so did I. And then you send me the file. And then in my administration, I thought I clicked download. Maybe I turned off my computer. I don't know what happened. But when time came to edit your episode, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And then no file found. And download. I only had the little download thing for WeTransfer. You know, that little link?
Yep.
And it wasn't complete. And I'm like, oh, no, click. And then the download isn't there anymore. And I'm like, I'm going to search everywhere before I bother Pieter. And then I had to be like, do you still have that? I felt, you don't know how much, like my bones, my head, like I felt horrible. It's like one of the worst things. But that's what happens with all these new ideas of trying to podcast and stuff.
Yes. Well, as long as it served for your, for you to change your system into a, fully operational, backed up, that's all I care about. We're doing this again, so it's all good.
Yeah. Thank you for doing it again. You worked on, during pandemic, you worked on podcasts, right? So you know what this is about.
I did. So that's also one of the reasons why I said, okay, I should record my audio on my side and then send it to you so that, we can, it'll be a lot easier for you to edit and all that. But so I worked on a podcast with a few friends. A friend of mine who's very passionate about education, he's trying to figure out, his mission is to change education as we know it. It's called Education X.0. If you want to learn about ways that we should be teaching and learning rather than, memorizing facts, it should be more learning how to learn. And it's actually quite interesting. And he's got really, really cool ideas. So I was, I wrote some music for it. I was, basically recording and editing. They had me as a part of the podcast as well. Mm-hmm. So
how did you feel doing more of a podcast role talking.
It was interesting. I mean, it was interesting also listening to them. So taking a backseat and just listening to them without having to participate.
Yeah.
And then also editing the podcast gives me a really just more of an appreciation for how certain podcasts are just done really well.
Yeah.
Like when people take the time to edit the dialogue and remove, unnecessary pauses and things like that, then it makes all the difference.
Yes, there's a lot of heart that gets thrown into it when you're making it sound the way it should. I think.
Yes.
We were just talking about that. I try to make the conversation sound as melodic and as not as melodic, but as rhythmically pleasing as possible. I don't know. That's a weird way because when you're a musician, you edit dialogue in a very musical way. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's why I haven't started doing any video yet, because I just love the way that the conversations, sometimes it's a very easy things. Sometimes the conversations have that rhythmic to it and you just do 2 or 3 things here and there.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do need to mold it a little bit, and it gives the listener a little bit of a kind of, it keeps things going, and it's nice. I think it, as you say, if you add care to it, it's very pleasing to the listener.
Yes. That, and also the art of interviewing people is also interesting, to kind of keep the conversation going. There's certain people that are harder to talk to than others.
Yeah.
So then, the questioning becomes important, and then the editing becomes really important.
Yes, I know. I've been learning as I go along.
No. So hopefully, you don't have to do a lot of editing in this conversation.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Plus, we're pushing this one all the way. Like, we've done 22.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I've recorded 45.
Oh,
so I've been doing it much better. Like, I can't wait for people to listen to all the new episodes. But since you were one of the first ones, I'm officially saying that this is going to be my 23rd episode. So
nice.
After I'm done with this, like next Wednesday, we're recording on October 8th. Like I'm putting this into the audio. We're recording October 8th, but this is going to be my 23rd one.
Nice.
So
Excellent.
Technically on Wednesday, you will be, this is the fastest turning episode ever.
Oh boy.
Composer podcast. so yeah, that's me saying I feel horrible for that. But thank you for your time. This is amazing. Last time we talked about the Secrets of Sulfur Springs. But can you tell me what the difference between jumping from something like that, which is for Disney Plus, which is for kids, into something like Patrón, Santo Patrón Malverde, which is historical, epic, drama, serious, in terms of writing music for both those projects?
Sure. First question is, can you hear the dog? If you can, then I can go shut up the dog.
That's fine. I'm going. No, it's fine. I can get rid of the dog.
Okay, cool.
Not in a like a weird
not in an
Sopranos, not in a weird HBO Sopranos way, but in a I can edit them out. Because Patrón has like 80 episodes.
Yes.
And I think Sulfur Springs isn't as big as a 80 episode Telemundo novela show.
Yeah, in scope they're very different. They're very different stories, and I'm scoring them in very different ways. So Secrets of Sulfur Springs is sort of a quote unquote typical TV show in terms of scoring, where you score it linearly.
Okay.
You go score from beginning to end. There's a theme. I wrote the main theme, and so the theme appears in different variations throughout the episode. Not that that's any different in Malverde, but the way that Malverde was done was I didn't write to picture. The only thing that I wrote to picture was the main title. So they asked me to do a main title, which was incredibly fun because I had to kind of, go back to my Latin music roots, having grown up in Latin America, living in Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala. And I hadn't really done any of that at least for scoring a show. And so what's interesting about this particular show too is that the character Malverde is half Yoreme, which is like the native Indians in the north of Mexico, and he's also, I guess, half European or half
coming from
whatever that might mean.
Spanish,
Spanish, in 1903, which is sort of when this takes place.
Yeah.
So I was combining that, the Yoreme side of it, and I had to do some research on the music. And then combine that with some, kind of Spanish guitar and some more Western and European harmonies. And then as far as the actual score, it was I basically wrote some themes, and I wrote a library of music for them, for them to edit. So I wrote, basically just a ton of music that they are now using for editing. So I gave them obviously stems so that they can edit as they wish. But when you're doing 80 episodes and they run Monday through Friday for an hour,
I know.
It is basically impossible to,
score the picture.
It's definitely.
Unless there's like 10 composers sitting in one room. Exactly. Running through it at the same time. Yes. No, I totally get it. And is there a telenovela feel to it? Because I know musically, and you being immersed in Latin American culture for so long, you know that there is this telenovela, epic, dramatic thing. And then this project being a historic, just dramatic, epic thing. Did you feel like you had to like push out the envelope or emotion and stuff like that? What was your approach emotionally? Or
so I tried to score it not necessarily as a telenovela,
more of an epic.
So trying to think of Malverde as kind of what he represents in Mexican culture, and trying to do justice to that.
Right.
Especially as, it's like Pieter Schlosser writing music for Malverde does not seem to compute. But believe me, I did a lot of research. So I'm hoping that has,
you've got a lot of Latin in you, of course.
I do. Totally, yeah. So I was really trying my best to do it, to do justice to the character. And for those people who don't know, you will correct me when I'm wrong because you are actually a Mexican. But he was, basically sort of a Robin Hood figure in Mexican culture, right? So he stole from the rich to give to the poor, and he kind of became this mythicized, if that's a word, figure. And he's sort of on par with like the Virgin Mary type of thing. So people have like altars for him, and they pray to him, and so I don't know if I've left anything.
No. It sounds super accurate.
Okay, good.
I think I know as much as you. You did the deep dive, so I trust you.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at is that I grew up in Mexico, and we're very emotional. You've lived around Latin people all your life.
Yeah.
We're very dramatic, and we're very emotional.
Yeah.
And for years our content has reflected that in acting and drama and music and in just comedy and stuff. Like we're a little bit over the top, if you would say. I feel myself when I talk to other people from other countries that there's a little bit of that difference. Is that something that you like? Did you push the strings, the emotional strings, in a very
to an extent? Also because of just how sort of epic this character is.
Yeah.
A lot of the actual sort of melodrama, if you will, was definitely coming through in the acting and the way that my music was used for, in the episode. So I watched a couple episodes back after they had edited, and they made definitely some choices, as you were saying, musically that I wouldn't have made, but they fit. I mean, Telemundo knows what they're doing, right? They know their audience, they know what the people want, but it's shot really beautifully. So it's not like a, typical telenovela that maybe you and I grew up with in like the 90s and the 2000s.
Yeah. No, so these guys are called serie novelas. Which is like they feel very Netflix. They are very, very Amazon, very Apple TV. They feel very epic in their photography and their cinematic, but they run so often, and they're like so many episodes of them that it has that telenovela tradition there.
It does, yeah. So that is obviously there, but as but as far as like you said, the cinematography, the costumes, the production design, like I've never really seen anything like this.
That's
so
amazing.
This is like Downton Abbey, but set in Mexico in 1903. In the north of Mexico. So it's that level of production. So they built an entire town in the north of Mexico. For this, so with a church and a store and a bar and you name it. So they really went all out, and it looks really good.
Did you have to do a little bit of like very epic, big sweeping orchestral stuff for this?
I did, yeah. So I did a combination of that. So I was trying to do the combination of sort of the the people in the story who are, sort of the more well-to-do, which, typically in this type of story, they're the bad guys, right? Because they're the people that have the money and are. So in the first episode, the story is that they're building a railroad and they're bringing electricity to the town. And, the mayor, and they're doing some kind of dirty work to deviate all of these things to go through their land rather than where it's supposed to. Yeah, exactly. Yes. All full corruption to the max.
To the max.
Right. So my attempt musically was to, like I said, sort of like, which is sort of encapsulated in the main title, is to be true to both the Yoreme side and the more indigenous side, and the European side, which the rich people are sort of trying to emulate. So, there's some orchestral things that are, and definitely some Spanish guitar. And then that combined with, like flutes and shakers and things that would be more, appropriate for the people that lived in the region originally.
Right. Do you play guitar?
I don't play guitar, but I have two friends whom I've actually, they're friends now, but I've never met them.
Oh, is it for the first time?
Yes. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. I got this gig through a recommendation to my friend Adri Salas, I've known her for a long time from Costa Rica. She works in post-production at Telemundo. And so she introduced me to the head guy at Telemundo. Nice. And, I pitched for this and eventually got the gig. And so she recommended that I reach out to my friend Federico Miranda, who's a guitar player, and he plays, or used to play, I'm not sure if they're still together, with a group called Gandhi in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And then I was browsing through, hours of Instagram, because that's how we waste our time, and I found another guitar player who is...
when it works, right?
Yes. Yeah, when it works.
Interrupting you with useless current events. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Okay.
Felipe Carvajal, I think he's from Colombia, and he lives in Miami. So I got in touch with him through Instagram, and I said, "Hey, would you like to play some guitars?" He's a monster guitar player. So if you look up Felipe Carvajal, and his handle on Instagram is FCRGUIT. So FC as in Felipe Carvajal, or guitar. He's an amazing player, and so is Federico. They're both amazing.
Shout out to both of them.
So I hired both of them to play. I sent them files, and they just played over them. And it's one of those beautiful things where they send you stuff back, and they're like, "Is this any good?" And you're like, "This is amazing. What are you talking about?"
Where you're like, great. They go, "Do you need me to do anything else for this?" And you're like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, please don't worry. This is amazing. Yeah, it feels like they're doing you a super big favor.
Yes.
Of how well, because of how well they recorded their stuff and played it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been an interesting thing too. So and then a friend of mine, another friend, I won't get into the story of how I know him, but I've known his girlfriend's mom for a long time. He's a trumpet player.
Right.
And he lives now in Oregon. And so we had been chatting, and I was like, "Oh, he should record some trumpets for me. I think he would, And he's like, "Absolutely, I will record some trumpets for you." So his name is Luke Harju, Harju. And it was interesting because we recorded remotely through VST Connect. And so if your other nerds who are listening haven't used this, it's actually pretty cool. It's basically I was here in my booth, quote unquote, in LA, and he was in the live room in Oregon.
And it's like having him in the next room.
So we recorded live. Yeah. He recorded live basically into my system from where he was, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's an extension of Cubase and Steinberg. It's done by Steinberg, right?
Right. Although you can, I think it does work as a standalone thing or as a plugin, so you can use it in any other DAW.
Nice. Okay, that's great. Yeah, I have to try that out because it seems like it would be super helpful.
It is. It's a little bit.
It's got video too, right?
It does. Yeah. And it's been getting better and better. It was slightly convoluted to set up initially, but once I got it in there, it was pretty seamless. It was pretty great.
Yeah. The orchestration for all that stuff, the mix. How did it go for this one in particular?
So I tend to do a lot of that myself. For both efficiency, because I like doing it. I had the initial idea of actually recording live, but the budget sadly didn't allow it.
Yeah.
But my idea was to go to Costa Rica and record an orchestra there. Sadly, that did not work out.
Stuff
So I had to limit.
Plus COVID and travel and expenses.
Yeah, COVID was also like a big factor. So I did all of it basically here in my studio in LA, and wrote it, mixed it, and sent it over to them, and they were super happy. And I was like, "Are you sure?" So it's one of those things, as the imposter syndrome that we all suffer from.
Yes, I know it happens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There is I'm excited to talk to you because the whole Cubase part. We talked a little bit about this last time around.
Nerd out. Yes. I
jumped from a digital performer to Cubase, and I'm finding out that it has so many features that help out composers in general. You've had conferences, you've gone to all these public settings where you talk about Cubase specifically for film scoring people who want to get into film scoring. In your experience, what have been some tools specifically for composers who do film and television music?
So I will preface this by saying that it doesn't matter what you use.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can use your phone, you can use a laptop, you can, it doesn't matter what you can use Fruity Loops or
whatever
it's called, FL Studio or doesn't matter.
Live, Ableton Live, Logic.
As long as the results are there, it really is irrelevant. I don't use anything that's that special. I don't use anything that isn't commercially available. So anything that I use, you can buy.
Yes.
One of the things that I do sometimes is that will make a difference is actually recording live as much as I can if the time and budget allows it.
Yeah. Because
it gives you a very different perspective, and it sort of changes the ownership of the music in meaning that we live all day long in our studios, and when we finally have somebody who is moving air, who is actually moving particles rather than us just playing samples, it makes 100% of difference because they're putting of their own experience and musicianship into your music, and it makes you go, oh, that's what that's supposed to sound like.
Yes.
And this is true whether you add a single instrument or you add a 80-piece orchestra. It's one of those things that's where you go, okay, this is why I do this, and this is where magic happens.
The human element, the human touch, the emotion behind it. Right.
Yeah.
But aside from that, when you're working on your own, some of the tools that you find, for example, I know you use Touch OSC, and I think that's amazing because you can, program your own stuff in there.
So
what else do you think in terms of?
So as far as the DAW goes, I'm a huge fan of Cubase, and I can say this sort of, with a certain authority because I've used all of them. I've used DP, I've used Logic, I've used Pro Tools. I haven't really used Live because I don't know if anybody uses that for scoring. And I always come back to Cubase, and for me, that is one of the better DAWs and the more complete DAWs. Now, as far as sort of being efficient, I have an iPad with Touch OSC on it. And if you don't know what Touch OSC is, it's basically you can build your own template with virtual faders and buttons for key commands and things like that. So things that are very, that you do repeatedly, you can program it on the iPad. And if you want me to send you a screenshot of it,
sure, we'll put it up
to put on the
of course. Yeah.
And then you can, create certain macros, meaning that you can, create a series of steps of certain things that you always do so that they're automated. So anything that will help you speed up your workflow, because in aggregate, especially when you're working on TV, those little things matter. Exporting your, and we were talking about this before we were going to start recording, exporting stems in a really efficient way where, so I basically, a lot of times I work backwards in terms of, okay, what on a project, what is it that they want me to deliver?
Right.
And then I think about that as far as the setup goes. So that I'm in tech mode from the very beginning of a project and think, okay, this is the way that I'm going to set it up so that at the end I press a button and everything is printed with one go. Right. I don't have to think about routing. I don't have to think about reverbs or, so a lot of the production, the mixing, the arranging, the orchestrating is all happening all at the same time.
Yes. You have it preset in a certain way so that you're only concentrated on writing, right?
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I love about Cubase is that it's so transparent. I don't think about the program. It's just something that allows me to lay down my ideas really, really quickly.
Okay.
So I'm able to just think about the creative aspect rather than technical things, because that really puts you in sort of a different brain, in a different wavelength. Once you have to start troubleshooting and thinking about, oh crap, the violin isn't routed in the right place, and when I export the stems, it's going to be in the wrong place, and so especially when you're doing TV.
Yes, writing. You're on that schedule for doing TV, and you're writing so fast, and you're being in creative mode, and then you have to pause and send something to another place and reroute. It just cuts the whole experience of being creative.
Yeah.
Puts a big pause on it. Yeah.
Being interrupted by that sort of thing is the worst. So like setting up a template, especially for TV shows where there's continuity in the sounds, that is one of the really like there's people that start with a blank template, and that's sort of bananas to me.
It scares me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I used to work with a composer who opened up a new session in Pro Tools for each animated episode.
Oh my God.
And he started loading like, I need some strings. And I'm like, come on. Like, anyway, of course we only have, we only have a week and a half to write 22 minutes of music.
Yep.
And so at one point I built a template for him, and he used it maybe 2 or 3 times, but he was so used to the process that he's like, oh, that was fantastic. But then when I wasn't there, he just started from scratch.
Reverted back to his old ways.
Yeah, to the old ways. But I do know how important it is to have a very producer efficient mind around your process.
That's one of those very interesting things. So I went to Berklee, as did you. But so I did a dual major. I ended up only graduating with a single major.
Okay.
But I did music production and engineering and film scoring, and I found that the music production and engineering program was much more useful.
Okay.
Because I learned about producing a record.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we're doing every day, right? When we write a cue, we have to make it sound like it's going to be on the radio.
Yeah.
So you have to know about signal flow, about reverbs, about, delays and compression and all of those things. Much more than, learning how to analyze Scriabin or, whatever.
A friend of mine was tweeting, another composer friend was tweeting, if I knew how much I would be EQing stuff when I started trying to be a film composer, I would have just freaked out because you end up EQing a lot of stuff that you didn't think you like. It's part of the process, but so cool that you have stuff set up that you get into a creative process and then nothing interrupts, which is the goal, right?
I think people underestimate just how many hats you have to wear as a composer these days, right? So you have to be a producer and and an engineer and an arranger and the orchestrator, and all the technology plays into that so much.
Yes. Let's list those out, because I always talk about that to my friends, and it's a good opportunity to just print it somewhere. We have to be a musician, because you play stuff into whatever. We have to be a programmer, because you have to program music into your DAW. You have to be like a little bit of a computer engineer with in terms of installing, deinstalling hard drives, authorizing, troubleshooting, operating systems, updates, all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
Buying a new computer and all that stuff. Yep. We're doing composing as a composer, just a basic composer. We're doing orchestrating. También, we're doing a little bit of that. We're also doing marketing.
Yeah.
We're doing management for your business.
We're doing billing.
We're doing billing.
Yeah.
We're doing studio production.
Yeah.
We're doing
public relations,
acoustic treatment. We're doing PR.
Yeah.
Social media.
Yeah.
What else? Booking.
Yeah.
Getting gigs, which is it's like an agent job.
Like a headhunter type of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes we mentor, and we have people in our team. So we are also team leader of head of music.
Yeah, we're contracting, right? So finding musicians to play on your stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Parts.
Right. So copying,
copying work. We're also producing. At the end of the day, music. Sometimes you're more of a producer on a project than the actual composer, and you grab things. And we're doing music editing. music editing all the time.
And and part of the project management, like you said, the producer part is if you're busy enough, where thankfully that was the case when I was working on Malverde and on the Disney Channel show. So I hired my friend Andy Forsberg, who's an amazing composer and equally amazing person, to help me. And basically he was, sending me stuff. I'd say, yeah, that's great. No, change this. So you're also playing that role. You're
a team leader too.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff. I'm sure when we jump into another theme or talk about something else, roles are going to still come up of what stuff that we do. Plus, we're family and like dads and all that other stuff, like our personal business, finance, investor.
Yes,
it's exhausting. Plus, we're in the middle of a human evolution pandemic.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh man, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Did I just bring down the whole conversation?
No, hopefully people are inspired by it. It's like I think people will realize that they've been doing all this stuff even without, realizing they were.
Yes, but it's so cool to know that all of those are professions that people specialize in.
Right.
Music editor, mixer,
yes,
mastering. We forgot to mention mixing and mastering.
Right,
those are super important. But it's really cool because we sometimes work with them and then we learn and then we apply that to our process. Right.
Right.
So it's really cool. But yeah, we're mainly composers, I guess. Everything else we do the best as we can, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, speaking of creative process, and we talked a little bit about this before, your creative process coming into a video game or a scoring project, after doing all the pre-work with what they need, doing your template and putting everything together, the creative process, the themes, are you more melodic or thematic or textures, or what is your approach?
That's a good question. I mean, I try. I think this question would be better answered by somebody else. Like if somebody were like, "Oh, this is usually how you approach things."
Right.
It depends. I'm trying to keep things interesting for me.
Right.
So I'm I'm really trying hard to get away from like the old, like my usual bag of tricks, because when you work in TV, as you know, you kind of just fall back to the stuff that is going to work.
So you can
it's like, it's fine. It's going to work. It's okay. You know, so then
next.
Yeah, exactly. Next cue. I've been trying to do things that are harmonically more interesting and maybe not necessarily, quote unquote functional.
Okay.
Which in a video game is super easy to do because, I mean, ultimately you can kind of do it any way you want, right? In anything, if you make it work, there's going to be, there's always a way to make it work.
Right. Like if it works in the end, all the stuff that's underneath doesn't really matter. It can be as crazy as, I get it.
Yeah. So I've been, it's like I'm trying to sort of keep educating myself on, especially on harmonic language and harmonic movement, something that John Powell does so unbelievably well.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to read a lot. I've been trying to watch videos. So there's a guy on YouTube who I really like, who I think also went to, I don't know if he went to Berklee. I think he definitely went to Manhattan School of Music. His name's Adam Neely. So look him up on YouTube. Is he kind of a savant.
Is he the one who plays the piano?
He plays bass as his main instrument, but he has this blog. Are there vlogs a thing anymore? Anyway, he has a YouTube channel, and he's incredibly knowledgeable. Young guy. Okay. He's like, I don't know, maybe 35 or something like that.
Right.
And he's super interesting. The other guy that I really like is Rick Beato, who's a guitar player. Yes. His stuff is really cool. So sometimes he'll analyze stuff and he's like, oh, well, let's listen to this tune by Thomas Newman and we'll talk about what he does. And so I love a lot of Thomas Newman. I love the modal stuff because it's very ambiguous. Like
the parallel keys and all that stuff that Rick Beato talks about sometimes.
Yeah. All that, like, all that is super interesting to me. So that's one of the things that I try to implement as I'm writing. And do I have an approach? Sometimes I'll sort of do the lazy thing where I started with a, like an ostinato and try to, make it grow from there. But I try to, I try to change the music maybe every 4 bars, to not get stuck in that trap of like, okay, well, here's 4 bars. So now I'm going to just copy paste and then just add a layer.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's
transpose.
super effective. Yeah. Or transpose by, up a minor third or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that can be super effective, but I'm trying really hard to not do that sort of thing.
When you watch TV, do you ever hear somebody who's doing a little bit of a scoring and you think, wow, what the hell happened there harmonically? That was really beautiful. Like
all the time, yeah.
Because all the time. That happens to me. I don't think I've talked to anyone about that before. But I'm watching a show and I'm like, what the hell happened there? Like that was really ingenious and that was really beautiful. Yeah. And I wish I had my keyboard so that I could play it back and try to see what the hell was like. It happens all the time, and it makes me feel, oh man, you have to really like up your game.
Yes, all the time. Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes I'll because a lot of the times we're watching stuff on on things that we can rewind. Is that still a word? Rewind.
Yes. Rewind the tape.
So I'll grab my phone and I'll turn on the voice memo stuff and I'll rewind and I'll go back and I'll just record that section and then later I'll listen to it and be like, oh, what the hell did they do there? And a lot of times I'm like, that is so simple. It's so simple. And that's sort of the trick that I found is that I think we tend to overwrite.
Yes.
We tend to add so much shit to stuff that isn't. Am I allowed to say shit? I don't know.
You're allowed to say anything. It's
okay,
your
cool.
episode. Whatever you want to do. In both languages, you're allowed to say anything.
We write so much stuff that is like, and you kind of go, wait, is that necessary? And then you listen to these guys that are, so good, like John Powell or, who obviously I love. Or somebody like Blake Neely, like he just won the Emmy for I think it was best main. I don't know if it was main title for this show on HBO called The Flight Attendant.
Oh, I love that show.
Oh, it's so good. The music is so good. It reminds me a lot of The Firm. I don't know if you ever watched. Yeah, so it's like a Dave Grusin like with a lot of the really really aggressive piano. Really good.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's really really good.
Yeah, those guys are amazing.
So you listen to stuff.
Listen to them. Yeah.
I listened back and I'm like, that was so simple what they did. And so I have to really think and remind myself of that. And it's like, okay, just let the picture tell a story and just kind of back off and do something simple is going to work here really well. Just stick to that.
That's a great idea. I'm going to start pausing. Is that still a word? It still says RWW on.
Yes, it does.
On TV. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to start doing that. I'm going to start recording little pieces of music with my phone.
Yeah.
Because I do find that I'm like, oh man. And then when you sit down and figure out what it is, you're like, oh, I would. It's so simple. I would have never thought of jumping into that chord from that chord, and it gives you this type of feeling. So all those discoveries I find really cool to learn from. Yeah. What have you been watching on TV? That's a random question, but.
So I've gone back and I watched WandaVision. Speaking of amazing scores.
Yes.
My God.
Oh, the score from Loki was also.
I haven't watched Loki yet, but WandaVision. Oh my God. Chris Beck did such an amazing job with that score because I mean, he was basically scoring like 7 different TV shows.
Yes.
Right?
It sounds epic plus intimate plus creepy.
Yeah, so you have like like a 50s thing with like I Love Lucy type of, very schmaltzy old Hollywood writing. Yeah. Then you have like the 70s sitcom and then you have like an 80s thing.
80s sitcom. It was all
bananas.
over the place. It was
so good. And then obviously you go into the later on into the Marvel stuff. What's that?
Yeah, how difficult of a gig.
Yes. And so well done. Oh my God.
Yes, so
well done.
Yeah, like you said, after you have all the Marvel stuff. So just getting a gig where you have to like sound that like an actual film, an actual Marvel film, and then throw all that stuff in there, all that like the creepy stuff, the era stuff, the TV sitcom stuff. It's an amazing accomplishment for.
Yeah, I bet you once you got to the Marvel stuff, it's like, okay, this is the easy part. Like, right? Because writing like a 50s style thing is like, that's a completely like, when do we ever do that?
Yeah, I had to write a little for The Last Kids on Earth. There's a little flashback to like a 50s sitcom with some like octopi, and they have a little baby, and then so I had to write like a little like one of those intros. Very
oh my God.
Dick Van Dyke stuff there. Yes. And it took longer to do that than the actual score for the episode. Totally know what you say. Yeah, and it was like 20 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
But just figuring out what I had to do so that the harmonies and the whole
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
How's the projects going? You're talking about, you were telling me a little bit about video game stuff. Are you jumping back into the video game world after a while?
Yeah, so I've been still working on it. Well, yeah, they haven't shown me the door yet on Destiny stuff, which is awesome. So I work with those guys.
Yes.
And I've been working still on that. And that's been...
I love Destiny.
It's so much fun.
It was a whole year of my life.
Oh, was it?
When I played it, yeah.
Nice.
And then I moved, so I had to sell all my PlayStation and all my stuff.
Tragedy.
But it's beautiful everything, just in terms of gameplay, music, sound. So I don't think I told you that last time around.
I think so. Yeah. They do a really good job. I mean, and the whole sound and music team there, that's headed by, OG Mike Salvatore, who's, he's been doing this for Bungie for years. Yes. And then Sky Lewin, who's who I went to Berklee with. He's sort of taking care of everything there as far as making sure that it's all ultimately fits, because there's several composers that are on it, and he does one hell of a job bringing it all together. I mean, hats off to him.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, it totally draws you in.
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
Work. But have you jumped back into that world?
Yeah, so I've been working with them. I don't know when because we kind of come early in the process. I don't know when the next release is coming out, but we did record recently in Nashville again, which was just incredibly fun. Like I said earlier, once you have people in front of you and they're actually playing the notes that you so tediously program into the DAW, and then they go, oh, that's what that's supposed to sound like. That's pretty cool.
Bring stuff to life.
Yeah, and I get to conduct, which is, like I get to conduct my own stuff, which is, oh my God, that is incredibly satisfying. It's daunting, because I hadn't done it in such a long time because of the pandemic.
Yes.
I was a little bit nervous when I got up there to conduct, but I mean, the musicians are all very gracious and all professional, and they might just be ignoring me and just listening to the click, which is fine.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna, when you mentioned the conducting, I didn't know how do you feel about, because I got really into it at Berklee, and since I've only had a chance to do it out in the real world like a couple of times, not like as much as I wanted, but when I was there, I like extended the ones that we had, conducting 1, 2, and then I did advanced, and then scoring for blah blah blah, and then so all the options that we had for conducting, I took. Plus, I worked with Richard Evans, one of the arrangers and harmony professors there, on his sessions. So he took me under his wing, and I did a bunch of sessions for him. Very big bandish stuff, not orchestral stuff. But we did get to conduct our own stuff when we were recording projects, and you've done it since. Is it something that you also... Because I feel it's something that I love, but I haven't had a chance to do as much.
I love conducting. Yes, I mean, conducting is amazing. I think it is... I'm trying to figure it out, because for what we do, for what you and I do for scoring, the musicians are so good.
They didn't really need us there? Is that what you're
saying? So I sometimes wonder how much they need us there. It's certainly easier to conduct my own music because I know what I want. Right. And what I love about being in the room with them is that there's a direct line from me to them, rather than being in a booth talking to the conductor and the conductor talking to them. If that has to be the case, I would rather speak to the entire room, including the conductor, and I'll just talk to them beforehand just to make sure that that's okay with them. You create a rapport with the musicians, and that's so important to extract the best performance out of them. And also, you just hear things differently when you're in the room with them. Right. There's something about being in that same space that is just really, really special. I think it would be interesting to be in a session, say here, conducting somebody else's music, right? And having to do things on the fly, like, okay, well, it looks like this part was, for the horns was done wrong. So here are your notes, and just calling out, like a transposition, like right on the spot. Oh, wow.
How scary.
Yeah. Like, I know Alan Silvestri has done that sort of thing. He's like right on the stage, and he's like, here, French horns, play these notes, and he just calls it out, like, and this is in your key rather than concert. And, so that would be, or somebody like David Newman, who has done this for years, and he's an amazing conductor, and he knows the orchestra inside and out.
Yeah.
That's like sort of a different level. But I mean, I would love to be able to get to that sort of thing, that sort of level.
Wow. Yeah, that's scary. That's scary for me. Like
Yeah.
I think I would only get in there if we had the click. I've listened to the mock-up 20,000 times.
Yeah.
Maybe conduct 2 or 3 cues and be like, okay, thank you.
Right.
Because if I got to a point where like, oh, let's transpose this. Of course you can call stuff out, but doing that on your brain, as you say, it's like a whole different level of a conductor, which is hats off. Those guys are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if it's a different story. Like if you're conducting a Mahler symphony or a Mendelssohn or whatever, you're being on stage and knowing the pieces inside and out.
No.
I think that's a different kind of skill.
Yes.
But yeah, conducting. I think the most important thing about conducting in the studio is not necessarily to keep the beat. They can listen to a click. They don't need you to count 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever the meter is.
Yeah.
It's just sort of kind of the emotion that you're trying to extract from them and figuring out certain things about the performance and how to get what you want out of them that will never really be in the samples.
Right. If you're there, then there's this connection and you can call out things not technically but emotionally in terms of like, let's bring this out a little bit more. Let's keep these notes running for a couple more bars and stuff that you find on the spot. And then there's this nice connection between the group there and really cool things get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you see all the behind the scenes for The Mandalorian for the scoring sessions? Did you get a chance to see?
I haven't yet. No, it's funny because so it's not like we're great friends, but I know one of the regular conductors, Anthony Partner. It's hard to say his last name, but he's an incredible musician. He's a phenomenal bassoonist, and he's got the voice of an angel. Like I think he also does voiceover work. So he's got this very booming, gorgeous voice.
Yes.
So I think he does that kind of work too, but. And then also one of the regular players who's an oboist, Claire Brazo, who is also a member of Camerata Pacifica, is and the LA Chamber Orchestra is part of that. So they kind of fill me in here and there on certain sessions. I'll look at their Instagram and be like, oh, you're at a session. So, speaking of amazing composers, I mean Ludwig Gorenson is another monster who's He's 34 or something. It's insane.
I know. That's not allowed to happen. I don't think that should be allowed to happen. Exactly. So much talent, such a young guys.
Yeah.
What I was getting to is that you can feel the emotion of the producers and the composer there, and it's just beautiful how it being a hybrid thing. The actual being on the stage with the musicians, it just feels really special to see that happening for some of us, right?
Yeah, and what's amazing too, especially about that particular score, is that he did such a good job of sort of branding the Mandalorian, right? Where it wasn't the typical, and I don't mean this with any disrespect at all, but it wasn't the quote unquote typical Star Wars score. And I love that about it, right? It's like, okay, this is now the Mandalorian score. Sure, it has some, Star Wars-y elements here and there, of course, but it's very, very unique. I mean, you listen to that tenor, recorder, and you're like, yep, Mandalorian, that's it. Yeah. All you need to listen to is doody, doody, doody. You're like, yeah, that's it.
Yes.
And that's so hard to do, So he
combines...
He does
that consistently with a bunch of characters. Like with the robot, you hear that, like all these... Yeah. There's a lot of like motifs, sound motifs too.
Yeah,
like actual sound design motifs.
Yeah,
music stuff. Really.
And the I don't know if I'm going to spoil this, but I'll try not to if you haven't seen The Mandalorian. But
spoiler
towards
alert
the end of season 2, I think whatever the last season was.
Yes,
where we have the guy show up that you weren't expecting. Oh my God, that's
that cue is beautiful.
Oh my God, yes,
that is a beautiful cue.
Yeah,
I played it back many times just to hear the song, and I tweeted, "Do we have a new That Person theme?"
Right?
Because I think I don't.
There is, right?
I think there is. I think
so
there's
too.
there's a new theme there for that character.
Yeah,
it's just beautiful. It's beautiful, and then the way it grows, and the way it just reaches emotionally, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening, I mean, you're a dad, I'm a dad, my kids they're growing up with these different figures. We were born with George Lucas, John Williams. They're being born with, they're growing up with Dave Filoni, Gorenson. Their R2D2 is Grogu. And so things are repeating themselves in a very beautiful way. My kids here ask the assistant, the digital assistant or whatever, they ask for playing tunes by The Mandalorian, like from the score. Yeah. And they know the name of Gorenson. Like that's their John Williams. It's amazing how they're repeating this really cool thing about themes and semiotics and
it is nice to have that to have that back in scores, because I feel like we moved away from thematic material. It's so it's nice to have the melodies back.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you, sir, so much. This is amazing talking to you. I know we could talk for ages, especially
probably
last time around. We talked about the difference between scoring video games and linearly and non-linearly and stuff.
Right.
So I might pick your brain on another episode about more stuff that has to do with scoring and stuff. But I first of all, thank you so much for being a super important part of El Luchador Audio and El Composer podcast, being one of the first ones to believe in this project. It's been growing really nicely, really beautifully, and we have a little community. It's been listened to in a lot of countries now. And awesome. It's such an honor to hear from you, hear your experience. Hopefully a lot of people will get to know your music and follow all the stuff that you're doing, because I think it's amazing. And
thank you.
And if you would, again, this is horrible. I tried to do this last time, and if you would indulge me and just say thank you to our audience in Spanish, just so they know how cool your Spanish is, which is also something that I really admire about your career and your lifelong. Oh, we also talked about health and mental health last time, so I'll pick your brain about that also.
We should do that.
Something really important to you. If you would indulge my weird asking you to give us just a shout out in Spanish so that they can.
Sure, so that people don't think I'm a fraud. Bueno, gracias por la invitación. Gracias por invitarme a hablar contigo y hablar un poco de música y bueno, de las cosas que nos apasiona. Y gracias a tu público que está escuchando y que ha estado aquí por, no sé, me imagino que 1 hora escuchando lo que tengo que decir. Ojalá algo sea útil para ellos.
Claro que sí. Muchísimas gracias, maestro. Thank you to everybody who's been listening. That's another episode. Thank you, Peter. And I'm going to give out all your info in this outro. PeterSchlosser.com and Pieter Schlosser on Instagram. I'll do a quick little outro after this. But I thank you so much. And on Wednesday, this is going to be our next episode.
Great.
I'm excited. I'm jumping right into editing this right after we finish.
Great.
Thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it. And thank you for sharing all this stuff with us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Peter. That was amazing. PeterSchlosser.com. PieterSchlosser. It's an amazing website. You can find Peter also on Instagram at Pieter Schlosser. PieterSchlosser. That was really cool. Thank you for your time, Peter. We have episodes in English and Spanish, guest composers, producers, and musicians who create tracks that tell inspiring stories. This is El Composer Podcast. Thank you for listening, everybody, and thank you for subscribing. This episode and all our episodes are sponsored by Luchador Audio. We're a company that produces beautifully crafted loops, samples, tools, content, exclusive content for creating music for you guys, with a focus on promoting Latin musical talent. Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you for making, listening, or supporting music. If all is well, of course, please don't forget to subscribe. And we will catch you in the next one. Thank you very much. Signing off, Marcelo. Bye.